When Lydia was diagnosed and I said to my husband, we were going to pick up my youngest from school that day and literally just came home from the hospital. I said, do you want to stay in this marriage with this situation?
Wow.
And I remember my husband looking over because in my mind, I assumed it's going to get tough and he's going to leave. And he looked over, he said, what do you mean? This is probably going to be really hard on all of us. And I said, I'm giving you your out. If you want your out.
Wow.
Now is the time.
Hey y'all, I'm Kimberly Warner, mama of two, lover of shoes, and serial entrepreneur. I've dedicated my life to helping women succeed in business by just being themselves. But the path isn't always easy. We have all gone through challenges and fear, but it is through those times when we learn who we really are, authentically. This podcast is for anyone who has experienced fear or is looking for the inspiration to do more, be more, or like me, rise from the ashes and be better than before. Here we go. Welcome back to another episode of Fearlessly Authentique. I'm your host, Kimberly Warner, and today we have a very special in-house guest. And when I say in-house, I mean in-house, like in the actual studio. In my house, Fearless Studios, y'all, is up and running. I am so excited. So today I have Sally Schaeffer. She's actually local to Wisconsin. You're from Burlington, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. And we actually got connected in a very strange way. So my agent knows you through some other stuff that you're going to talk about in a little bit. And then one of my friends that is on my direct selling team also knows you, and she gave me your name and thought you'd be a perfect guest for Fearlessly Authentique. So we're so excited to have you. So welcome to the show, Sally.
Thank you. It is so good to be here. Good to chat with you and share my journey. So thanks.
Yeah, we're excited to hear about it. I mean, it's going to be probably a pretty tough story to tell. I know you've told it a lot, but at the end, there's really great things happening. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here. And I know it stems all the way back to Mother's Day of 2014. So can you fill us in on a little bit about, what was going on then?
Sure. It actually, Kimberly, goes even farther back from that. I'm a mom and a full-time employee and married for, it'll be 18 years, I think, this year.
Congratulations.
Thanks. But it goes back to when I had my children. So my first son is now 16, but my daughter was born in 2007. And we were so excited to have a little girl. I have a very close relationship with my mom, and so I was excited to go shopping and have a little sassy girl.
So fun.
Yes. And when she was born, about 5 months later, she was diagnosed with a very rare chromosome disorder. And they told us they didn't know what her future would look like. We asked how many of these rare kids are in Wisconsin or in, Milwaukee. And they said, well, at the time, there was only 50 diagnosed in the world.
Oh, my gosh.
In the entire world. And so that really threw us for a loop. We didn't know anyone with a child with a rare chromosome disorder, which would leave her with special needs.
Okay.
And so we were kind of going in the dark with it. And that is really when my entire journey and my life flipped. Like you wouldn't believe. The first month after her diagnosis, I was very sad and I kind of threw myself into a hole and could not believe that this was my life. I remember having conversations with my brother. I'm a faith-based woman, and I said, why is God giving me this journey?
Right.
And he said it's because he thinks you can handle it.
My grandma used to always say that too.
Yeah. And at the time, you're thinking they're just words.
Right.
But yes, so she was born with this rare chromosome disorder. She struggled to meet all of her activities, all of her skills.
The milestones.
The milestones.
Sure.
And we had to take care of all of her activities of daily living, obviously as a baby, but even as she grew, because she, couldn't eat on her own. She couldn't bathe or dress herself. And she was fully diapered, and she didn't walk until the age of 5. And so everything was delayed for her. So that was, I mean, we had doctor's appointments upon therapies, and I still maintained my full-time job because I needed the insurance to care for her, my husband being an entrepreneur.
Right.
So that is really when my true journey began, is when we received that diagnosis.
For sure. Because it turns everything upside down. And I have a friend myself who has 4 children, and 3 of which have special needs. And they struggle every day. They never know what's going to happen tomorrow. But they're so blessed and so happy in today, and that the today that they get to have with, all of their kids. So there's happy moments for sure. But
absolutely,
it's just hard when you don't know. And especially when it's something so rare that you can't even connect with another person to kind of build a tribe around you.
Not at first. And me being a type A individual, like, okay, everything's scheduled, everything's planned.
Are you? Oh, yeah. You need a part-time job?
I am. I everyone knows me. They're like, oh, you're organized, you're planned. But I had to reel that back. Because like you said, you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. So I can plan all day long to go somewhere at the end of the week. But if she was sick or if she needed me, everything was canceled.
Right.
And so I had to learn to roll with it. Maybe that was the gift, part of the gift that was given to me of, hey, you need to taper back a little bit of your personality and who you are, and realize that you can't control everything.
Right.
And yes, so many blessings as well from her, and so many things that I learned. I mean, she taught me a ton that I would never learn in books or in school.
I bet. So can you think of something off the top of your head that she taught you?
She taught me unconditional love, and she taught me that to enjoy the simple things. Because when you think about a child not meeting their milestones, and you think about that, I would watch my son riding his bike, and I would watch his feet on the pedals. And I really realized that was an amazing thing, that he could pedal a bike.
Right.
But she could not. Or when she walked, I remember the day that she came home and walked, I went in the shower after that and sobbed in relief, in appreciation.
Right.
So many things that I had seen just from her walking at the age of 5. She actually got up on her feet and walked.
All the things you take for granted.
Absolutely. So that was such a gift that, and I would be at work and people would be getting upset a project wasn't done. And then I would end my day and I would go to feed her dinner, and she would just give me this big smile, and I would look and think, this is what's important.
Right.
This is what we need to realize is important in life, is the things that are right in front of us, the people that are right in front of us, and that smile that was so simple to her, but it made my day. And then I realized there's just so many things that I learned from her.
So because it's such a rare illness and you didn't know a lot about it, what are some of the challenges that go along with this chromosome disorder? What were some of the health challenges?
So there's a lot of health challenges, and they come day to day. But one of the things my daughter was diagnosed with was epilepsy. She had her first seizure at 1.5. I remember it like yesterday, my husband trying to drive us to the hospital, to the ER, and him not being able to do it. He was so worried that, about her in the back seat.
Right.
And then at 3.5, she started to have more seizures. And we went to the doctor and the neurologist, and they said, medication, it's time for medication. But I was really apprehensive about that because of the fact that so many medications for epilepsy can have adverse effects.
Right.
And I didn't want her to experience those. So they put her on a medication that seemed to work, and she would have a seizure maybe once a year when she'd become really ill. But then in March of 2013, she had a really, really bad seizure, and I delivered her emergency medication, which was done rectally, and the seizure didn't stop. And I knew something had drastically changed. But being a little naive, I thought, well, we'll just put her on a stronger medication. We'll see how that goes, and that will probably stop the seizures. So a few months later, we went in for an EEG, which they put electrodes on the brain and see where the seizures are coming from, what type of seizures, etc. And I will never forget the next morning when the pediatrician on the floor came in really early in the morning. I had been sleeping on the couch next to her crib, and she had really just fallen asleep in the last few hours. So it was a very rough night. And
how old is she at this point?
She was 6.
Oh, okay, 6.
6. So the pediatrician came in and loudly said, "You need to get up. The neurologist is going to be coming in." She was seizing almost her entire night of sleep that she did get. And it's very rare. It's a type of subclinical epilepsy, which it's nocturnal. And I had known from another special needs mom friend of mine, Jennifer, who has a son named Jacob, I knew subclinical was bad. I knew it was awful and it was the worst type. And I don't think I've ever cried so hard besides her original diagnosis after that doctor walked out, knowing that we were in trouble. Mm-hmm. And that was all I kept thinking was, we're in trouble.
Like, you've been facing such a mountain, now what do you have to face? Like,
exactly.
How much higher can the mountain get?
That is perfectly said, because all this time you just continue to face adversity and health challenge after health challenge, and you climb it, you get through it. And now all of a sudden this was thrown at us. And the doctor came in and told us the rare type of epilepsy was called electrical status epilepticus in sleep, or otherwise known as ESES. And because she had this rare chromosome disorder, the odds were against her. He never, said anything except that we need to continue to try medications, maybe talk about surgery. But I knew that this was going to be a rough road. Mm-hmm. And we tried many medications, many cocktails of medications. We did go through the discussion of having surgery, which meant it would take out a portion of her brain, and they could possibly leave her more disabled than she already was. I mean, she was a nonverbal child.
It's a big risk.
Right. And we didn't feel comfortable with it.
Right.
Because the seizures could return to the other parts of the brain. A friend of mine came to me at the time and said, "Have you heard of cannabidiol or CBD? Mm-hmm. They're using it out in Colorado. You should think about it." And it wasn't legal here in Wisconsin.
Right.
And so I started looking into that. And I went one morning. My husband was watching TV, and I put my head on his lap, and I said, "I think I'm going to fight for CBD." And he said, "What? Oh, my gosh, no. At Wisconsin, it'll never happen. There's no way." And I just started reaching out to media.
Okay. And were there some results that you had seen or things that you had read to prove that the CBD could, in fact, help with the disorder, the seizures in general? Or what was the outcome if you were able to use it?
Yes, there were families in Colorado, because in Colorado it was legal.
Sure.
And Charlotte Figge, who was really becoming nationally known. She was a child with epilepsy, and her mom, Paige, were really making movements nationwide, worldwide at the time.
Okay.
And so in Charlotte, her epilepsy was being controlled with CBD, as well as others in Colorado. So you were seeing it happen. I did not know if it would work for my daughter. Mm-hmm. I had no idea.
But you wanted the opportunity to know.
Absolutely. I wanted the opportunity. She literally, Lydia, my daughter, ran out of pharmaceutical options. The doctor literally stood in the room at Children's Hospital and said to me, "We are out of options for this type of epilepsy." I was left with nothing.
Right.
Except to try to figure out how to save my child.
Right. And what else is a mother going to do other than fight and claw and anything you can do to find an answer, solution to make your child feel better, to, help them in any way. You're just going to go to every length. So
absolutely,
if somebody else was having success, naturally you would want that same opportunity. So did you consider moving to Colorado? That's maybe what I would have done.
Well, and you said a mother would do anything. I am that mother that plays by the rules. And at the time, CBD wasn't very well known. And I was so afraid to even think about giving it to her or getting it here and giving it to her in Wisconsin, because I thought, if Child Protective Services takes away my child, who's going to take care of all of her high needs that I know so well?
Right.
And so I thought about moving to Colorado, yes, but I thought I'm going to fight here first. Mm-hmm. And I kind of started this grassroots effort, and all these parents from around the state joined in because I knew that one voice was not going to change things. It was going to take a multitude of voices to really make a difference. And a lot of other strong, amazing families and people affected by epilepsy, not just parents, stepped up to share their story and why they also wanted the option.
So Lydia's 6, you're starting this grassroots effort to get it at least legalized in Wisconsin, and you have a group of people. How does that go? I mean, what do you even do? I wouldn't even know the first step to take. What's the first thing you do, or what did you do?
Well, I went out and asked some friends on social media if they had connections to the media. And I had someone give me a very exhaustive list from their current job. They said, here's a list, keep it on the down low, but here's a list of people that contacts,
Nice.
emails, things like that. So I tested my message out on social media first. I went out with all factual information about epilepsy and what could happen with epilepsy. And I was scared. And what were the numbers looking like for epilepsy? Very data-driven. And the response on social media was very quiet. Then the next day, I went out with a message of emotion. I am afraid to lose my daughter. Mm-hmm. I'm afraid that I'm going to open up her door and she's going to be gone. Because what people don't realize and didn't realize is that you can die from epilepsy.
Right.
And so that was the message I went out with. And the response was overwhelming. And so I knew what I needed to go with the media with. I tried the data-driven with the media, and it didn't pick up.
Interesting.
But I tried the emotional side with the media, and I received a call the next day from the Journal Sentinel.
Interesting.
In Milwaukee. And they said, we'd like to talk to you. We'd like to do an opinion piece. And that was how it started out. And then after that went out, the TV news came to me and said, we'd like to do a 3-minute piece on this.
So you must have been elated because now at least your message is getting out there and, the steps that you're taking are producing some results. And that's got to feel a little bit good, right? Because you're just trying to fill a little hole, a little hole at a time just so you can kind of feel like you're on this mission, you're doing the right thing, you're on the right course. So that had to have felt good in the moment.
It felt really good in the moment that I could now make traction and educate and move forward. And it happened really, really quickly. And then after the news story ran, there was a legislator that called me and said, hey, we already have a bill in the works. A mom already up here in Madison is working on a bill for legalization of CBD. So would you like to join in this effort? And I said, yes, I already have this grassroots media effort going, and whatever we can do, I'm glad the bill is moving forward. So we just wanted to take this approach to educate, just to get out there and really educate people. So I was kind of that media person with all these other parents and organizing them, really working with them on, okay, what are our messages? How do we educate in a very positive way? Because at that point, people weren't sure about CBD.
Right.
Does it make you high? What does it do?
Right.
And I wanted them to see it in a different light.
Right. And you have to be positive about it, but then at the same time, you probably had to be really poignant, really direct, and make sure your message was getting through, that this could be
absolutely
a potential solution to a very long medical issue of epilepsy.
Absolutely. And many other medical conditions too.
Sure.
So, but it was baby steps.
Right.
It was baby steps, educating people and sharing with them the positives of it.
So you do end up getting the bill passed. Am I correct? That happened a little bit later?
It was actually really quickly. So that started in January of 2014, all of the media.
Okay.
And on April 16th, myself and many other families stood next to Governor Walker, and he signed a bill April 16th, 2014. So just a few short months later, and it was lucky for us, as we thought at the time we were lucky because the legislative session was ending.
So you get it passed, and then what happens?
The bill doesn't work. A legislator had kind of added a little caveat into the bill that you needed an FDA investigational license. And that is like doing a research study. And nobody wanted to pursue that. No one had the bandwidth or the finances. And so the bill, in essence, didn't work.
Then now, how are you feeling? I mean, you must be devastated, and now you're going to move to Colorado?
Well, that was on my mind.
Yeah.
I had said, let's not add this piece, but that was the only way this legislator would let the bill go through.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I had told my husband my daughter's next EEG is due May 17th. And if the seizures are back, then we need to consider maybe me and the boys and I moving.
I would imagine that going through all of these battles, Lydia's illness, day one, it's a battle, like we were saying. Did that impact your marriage in a way? Like, did it bring you closer? Or, sometimes when these sorts of things happen, you don't get to 18 years. That's why I was like, congratulations. Because sometimes it can be really hard to do together. Were there really tough times? Did it affect your relationship with your husband or your kids, your other kids?
Yeah, there was. From the moment my daughter was diagnosed, though, I always was very cognizant of my children and how it affected them. I'm sure I didn't do a great job all the time, but I tried to.
Well, we always think as moms that we don't do a great job.
I know.
But
I think we're more critical of ourselves often. And my husband, we had some other external factors that were heavy on our marriage, as well as caring for our daughter. I think we were a good team. My husband was someone that if I was in the hospital, like the day that she got the diagnosis of her epilepsy, I will remember that call to him too. I was sobbing. I could barely talk. And I said, you've got to get me out of here. I have to get out of here. I cannot stay here. I need out. I was so deeply affected by this latest diagnosis. My husband immediately packed a bag and came up and sat in that room for her for 3 days while they tried different medications. And this was a room you weren't able to leave. You could not leave that room. So we were a team.
Yeah.
I would do day shift. He would do night shift, or vice versa.
Okay.
But we were a team with our children. And in a lot of ways, I think it brought us together because we needed each other to get through this journey. But there were definitely dark times. I mean, I remember one time where she was so sick and I was taking her to every specialist. I had no idea what was wrong. I told him, I said, I'm falling. And he said, well, maybe you need to speak to a therapist. And I said, no, I think I need more than that. Like, I'm literally feel like I'm spiraling. And I said, I can't fix her. I don't know what to do. And that's my job.
Right.
And I remember coming home and he had flowers on the table and a card. And it was something funny in the card about, we need you. Otherwise, we're screwed.
Yeah.
That's what he wrote. And my daughter ended up getting better shortly after that. So, I didn't need to take any other measures. But I remember telling him, I'm in trouble emotionally because I can't help her.
Right. You just feel so helpless.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's one of the hardest feelings to migrate through as a woman, for sure, and definitely as a mother, because we can multitask and we can work and we can be the caregiver and remember where the socks are. We've got like this
we do
gift.
all the things.
Yeah, all the things. It's like this mom power situation, and when one piece of that isn't working, it's just got to be so frustrating. And I do deal with depression as well. And so I can only imagine what sort of spiral you were going through in that current situation.
It felt like water down a drain. That was how I literally felt my body. Like I was spiraling down a drain at that time. So it was really hard. And when he saw that I was serious and that I was really in a bad place, I remember the look of fear in his eyes.
Right.
As if, oh gosh, our rock is breaking.
Right.
Yes. But when my daughter was diagnosed, we came home from the hospital that day, and I come from a unfortunately divorced family. My father left when I was very, very young and wasn't really part of my life, and raised by a very strong, amazing mother. When Lydia was diagnosed and I said to my husband, we were going to pick up my youngest from school that day and literally just came home from the hospital. I said, do you want to stay in this marriage with this situation?
Wow.
And I remember my husband looking over because in my mind, I assumed it's going to get tough and he's going to leave. And he looked over, he said, what do you mean? This is probably going to be really hard on all of us. And I said, I'm giving you your out. If you want your out,
Wow.
now is the time. He said, she's my daughter. You're my wife. We have a son, and I absolutely love you all, and I will not leave. He said, I'm not your dad. And I said, okay. I said, if you're in, and you're in forever. I said, there's no outs at this point.
Right.
And he said, I would never. She is my daughter no matter what she was diagnosed with.
Ever see those women out there with the perfect shade of blonde hair, like me, or lush, long eyelashes? And you think, gosh, what vitamins do they take? Well, ladies, spoiler alert, they aren't taking vitamins, but what they are doing is going to Salon Nova at 2581 North Downer in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Salon Nova specializes in lash extensions because they used Liquifan lash product, which was invented by the owner, Nova, the only patented instant cure system on the market, which equals stronger, longer-lasting lash extensions. They're going to be long, lush, and you don't have to use any mascara. You wake up looking perfect, as if you had makeup on at 6 in the morning. It's fabulous. They are a super inclusive salon. They have color and cut experts for all different hair types. In fact, they are WeDad certified. For all of those curly-haired cuties out there, your cut will be perfect, and they have all of the products to go along with it as well. You don't want to miss the chance to get those lush lashes or that perfect shade of blonde. So book your appointment today at Salon Nova. You can call 414-273-6682 or salonnovaonline.com. We'll give you more information and their regular hours. They are open Monday through Saturday and Sunday by appointment. If you prefer to have a private appointment, those are also available. All you have to do is call 414-273-6682 or visit salonnovaonline.com. Well, that speaks to a really strong, amazing love and connection and relationship, because I know a lot of people that don't have that same thing. And if they were put in your situation, could probably never, come out on the other side still together. So that had to feel really good in the moment.
Well, it did. I even said, I won't be mad. I said, I won't be mad. If you walk now, I won't be mad. I'm giving you this out. And he said, absolutely not.
So then your sister's words were true. Why did this happen to you, or why did it happen to you and your husband? And it's that God knew that y'all could handle it, that y'all could do it together and stay together. And so that kind of speaks to your message that you said earlier to me. So
Right.
So now you're probably not going to get it legalized in Wisconsin, and you're contemplating maybe moving with the boys to Colorado. You're not totally sure.
Right.
And then what happens next?
So being a special needs mom, I never really got away. I mean, I would work during the day, and then in the evening and weekends, it was my daughter. And we did have respite care, which was wonderful. We had the wonderful caregivers, and we did do one vacation a year. But there was one weekend a year that I raised money for Children's Hospital. And if you raised over a certain amount, they would give you, there was a B&B up in Door County, Wisconsin, a touristy town in Wisconsin, if anyone's listening from out of state. But
right.
And so I would get this B&B stay, and my husband always said, go with your mom, spend that weekend with your mom. And so my mom and I would go up on Mother's Day.
Nice.
And we would go and spend this weekend together, just shopping, eating.
Yeah.
It was nice because I wasn't feeding anyone, changing any diapers.
Right.
I was clothes shopping, and it was a weekend my mom and I could have together because those were few and far between.
Right.
And so that was scheduled. And so May of 2014, that weekend, we went up. It was one of the most gorgeous weekends on Mother's Day. As you know, Mother's Day could be
one or the other.
Yes.
Yeah. It can be like 10 degrees or it can be like 75.
Absolutely. And that weekend was 75. The sun
nice.
was shining. It was glorious. I went for walks up there. We had a great weekend. And Mother's Day morning, Sunday morning, I got up and I thought to myself, okay, I've got to go back to my world of being a special needs mom. No more, doing whatever I want for 2 days and eating.
Gallivanting around,
Right.
eating fried food and drinking wine.
Right.
No more of that, Mom.
No more of that, Mom. That shopping mom that's don't have children. And the phone rang. And it was my caregiver. And she was talking to my mom. And my mom, I could hear her saying, slow down, what's going on? What's going on? And I ended up grabbing the phone. And the service is really sketchy up there, being rural. Yes. It was at the time. And I stood by the window, and I remember crouching down by the window, and my husband was on the phone, and he was crying like I've never, ever heard him cry before. And he was like, you have to get home. You just have to come home. She's not okay. And I was like, what do you mean she's not okay? And he's like, just get home. And I remember posting on Facebook that my daughter was ill. Please pray. Like many times that I had done before, I really believe in a village of support. And I called my husband back, and I said, you have to tell me what's going on. What is happening? And he said, she's gone. She's dead. And I'm like, well, what did they do for her? Because I was that person that would always walk him through like what tests to did and pulse ox, and he's like, he said they couldn't do anything for her. She was already gone. Yeah, I fell apart in my mother's arms in the bathroom floor of the B&B that we were staying. And she just hugged me as I collapsed and cried and screamed. And in complete shock that my daughter was now gone.
And how hard to not be able to be physically there in like a minute.
Yeah,
that's
a 3.5 hour drive.
Yeah.
Home.
Because I can imagine that you just wanted to be there in an instant and be able to see her and hold her and know for sure. And you have to be on the phone. It's like, that feeling of not being able to get where you need to be fast enough.
It's such a surreal. I can't even describe the emotions of that day, of getting that message and just feeling like everything's moving around you, but you're standing completely still, thinking, what just happened? Mm-hmm. What just happened? I remember we had met some special needs moms the night before. Mm-hmm. They take an annual trip up there.
Oh, okay.
And we had just happened to meet them. And because my cell service was so bad, I'd run up to them to see if they had better service. And they said, what's going on? And I think I blurted out, my daughter's dead. She died. And I was just telling them the night before about fighting for the law for her with other parents and everything that had gone on. And they were special needs moms. So they
got it.
They got it.
Mm-hmm.
And these women literally jumped up and helped pack us up within, it felt like 10 minutes. They were hauling stuff out to the car. They jumped in emotions, just like moms and especially special needs moms do.
Absolutely. They
were amazing as well to get us out of there in record time. And my mom drove all the way home. And I know that people say, gosh, that car ride must have felt like forever. But it honestly didn't. It felt like 5 minutes. I only remember a few things. Mm-hmm. I only remember calling her special needs doctor, asking about an autopsy. Mm-hmm. And should we do that? And he said, with epilepsy, you can't tell if epilepsy is what killed her.
So there was no way to know if that is what had happened or something totally unrelated.
Well, that was the only thing.
Logical.
Logical, condition that we knew. Plus, she seized in her sleep. And when you seize in your sleep, you're at a higher risk for passing from epilepsy in your sleep.
And so this has an official name. It's called SUDEP. Is that correct?
It's called SUDEP, which is sudden unexpected death in epilepsy.
And so this was kind of becoming a little bit more well-known, I think, as the years kind of went on, only because of the Disney star that he died recently at age 20 of the same thing. Had you even heard of SUDEP at this point? I mean, was this something that was even, because I feel like I vaguely remember reading something, and maybe it was about the Disney star Cameron Boyce, but where their father said that they didn't even know what it was called until 2 months after he had died. They couldn't even figure it out, and they didn't have a name for it. So did they even have a name? Were they even able to tell you about this at that point? Because this is 2014.
This is 2014, and SUDEP has been happening for 20 plus years.
Right.
They've really only been talking about it in the last 15 years, maybe 12 years. I knew that death could happen. So when I said to you, the doctor came in and gave me this diagnosis, and it was the hardest that I ever cried, it was because I knew subclinical epilepsy could mean that we were in trouble because she could die. Mm-hmm. So I knew, but her doctor never once mentioned it. And when I ordered her medical records from the time of diagnosis to the date of her death, never once was it mentioned in the medical records that the discussion was had. And even her nurse case manager, her and I had lunch almost a year after Lydia passed. One of the first questions she asked me was, did they ever say it was fatal? Because I was there in that room when they were talking about the diagnosis. Did they ever say it was fatal? And I said, no, they didn't have to. I could tell.
You knew because of your other friend who had special needs that subclinical word was really bad.
It was bad.
If I heard that, I mean, I would have to ask other people, but I would not know that meant a higher level of possible death.
Risk for death.
Right. So that was never a conversation or a therapy session or anything up until this. So that's kind of disappointing when you think about it on the medical side of it, that nobody had brought that up. Maybe, you might want to see, let's talk in therapy, like some things that, preparations. And I don't know how you even prepare for that, but just to at least have had the conversation with the medical professional. Do you think that would have been helpful, looking back?
I don't know. I mean, I think we exhausted all of our efforts. I wish he would have said it.
Right.
I wish he would have said, like,
be honest in that moment and face to face and know exactly what could happen. I mean, you knew deep down, but nobody actually said the words to you in the medical area that you are, in the medical field where you were at. That kind of is a big deal to me.
It is a big deal. And unfortunately, it's happening even more. I mean, not even more, but physicians are still not sharing about SUDEP and that the risk.
Because I had never heard of it.
Right.
So my daughter, Madeline, is 15, and she's a big fan, always has been, of Jessie and, the Descendants.
My kids too.
She knew Cameron Boyce, the one who played the boy with the curly hair and the freckles. He was a great dancer, cute kid. And I said to her, you know who I'm going to be talking to on a podcast tomorrow? And she's coming to the house and everything. And I said, here, watch this article. I pulled up one of the GMA commercials where his parents were on, and then you were on talking. And my daughter said, oh, yeah, he died in his sleep. I had never heard of it being a sudden, unexpected death in epilepsy, like sleeping at night. There's other sudden deaths that are unexplainable, right, of little newborn babies and all that kind of stuff. But I'd never heard of this.
Right.
And especially at the age of 20 for him, or 7 for Lydia, like, it just is strange that it's not talked about more.
Right. No, I agree. And that kind of led me to where, my next path. And that was about 3.5 years ago when I went on LinkedIn Jobs and found a position available with the National Epilepsy Foundation.
So wait, you're like, time to find a new job or a job, and you just happen to go online and then LinkedIn, and then poof, there's a job like in the world of epilepsy. It is sort of like, was it like highlighted like with big arrows, like this is for you?
No. So I had actually just switched roles. I was working at a major bank.
Okay.
And I'd been recruited there, and I wasn't feeling exactly fulfilled. That was something that my husband and I always talked about after my daughter died was, you want to live life to the fullest now. You want to do things that make you happy.
Right. Fill your cup.
Fill your cup. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And not just live.
Right.
Like you want to live and make it worthwhile. And I remember a conversation on the couch where he said to me, he's like, do we look for it? Does it come to us? What are we supposed to do? And I said, I don't know. because we really didn't know what that next thing was
right.
for either of us.
And you were working in the financial area of your entire career?
So no, I had been working for a major insurance carrier for almost 14 years.
Okay.
And then I was recruited to a bank, and I started there.
Something different. Okay.
Something different, getting, expand my resume, my portfolio, and I wasn't feeling exactly fulfilled there. So I went on LinkedIn Jobs and I typed in epilepsy.
No way.
That's what I typed in. And up came the senior director of the Sudden Unexpected Death and Epilepsy Institute, or the SUDEP Institute.
Okay, that gives me goosebumps. Number 1, Steve has goosebumps over there too. Number 3, all I can say is I have a really beautiful Bible over here that one of my friends sent me, my friend Sarah, and I feel like the pages are moving right now. I mean, that is giving me serious goosebumps, because that not only did we just get done talking about how very, very rarely it's talked about, but you're just let's just see what's out there. And
it was 10:30 on a Sunday night, and I just went out there, and my husband was in bed, and I go, honey, oh my gosh, you will never believe what I just found. I'm like, this is it. This is it. This is where I am to go next.
And was it local? Where was the job at?
It was national.
Okay.
Just out of DC. And my husband was so tired. He goes, that's great, honey. Let's talk about it tomorrow.
Just like a man.
Because he was so tired, and it was late, and he had already crawled into bed. And once he crawls into bed, he's going to sleep.
They only got 2 things on their mind when they crawl into bed. And if the one isn't happening, the sleep is. I'm just saying. Let's just put that out there.
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
We got to have a few laughs, Got to smile once in a while during the podcast.
That's right. So it was funny. It was funny what he said. But the next morning, the wheels were in motion. And I just started contacting people. And it ended up, the executive director of the local epilepsy affiliate out of Madison, he was on the board of the SUDEP Institute.
No way.
And he and I knew each other and had a relationship from fighting for the law and things like that. So we talked for 2 hours. He filled me in. I started making even more connections. I think I had over 10 letters of reference from legislators on both sides of the aisle that had worked with me and appreciated that relationship. And I went for that like nothing else. Yeah. I was like a dog with a bone. Yeah. I was determined that that was going to be my position.
But your hard work had already paved the way. I mean, all of the hard work that you had already done up until then really was kind of a path to what seems like a perfect job. So
Right.
So you get it? So. You get the job?
So it was a national search.
Okay.
And it was down to 2 candidates, and it came down to where they offered me the job. And I started January 8th of 2018.
Okay.
And hit the ground running. There's lots of things to accomplish. And one of the things you talked about earlier is how physicians don't talk about this possible fatal situation with epilepsy. And I wanted to approach it a different way. I wanted to approach it through the families that were affected by this loss, because they really have a powerful voice. Again, using other voices just besides mine to really move the needle. But I was very blunt with physicians. I would tell physicians right out that I would tell people with epilepsy that, 1, they need to see an epileptologist. A neurologist is great, but an epileptologist has a few more years of education specifically with epilepsy under their belt. And I would also tell them that if their doctor didn't want to talk about it, that they should find a new one.
Right.
And
empowering
people.
Right.
And that was really my method, in this role, was knowledge is power. Mm-hmm. I want people to feel empowered and strengthened by knowing what to ask, knowing what to do, and who to see to talk about it. Because the more knowledge you have, the more empowered you feel.
Right.
And you don't feel weak from knowing what could happen.
Right. You're prepared.
You're prepared.
Yes.
Yes.
And you feel like you are ready to take on the next challenge the next day because you have all of this information under your belt.
Absolutely.
So the job must have been, a lot of challenges, I'm sure, but also very fulfilling. And are you still in that role today?
It was very fulfilling because I was given the gift to talk about my daughter almost every day. What job do you get to go to and talk about your child and use your passions and your skills? I crisscrossed the country. You mentioned I was on Good Morning America. I was on the show The Doctors. I was able to take what I know, what I feel, and use it to help other people. That is something my daughter did for me. She taught me so much, and I wanted to give that back.
Right.
So you asked me, am I still in that role? I was actually just recruited by an advertising agency out of New York City to work for them, again, helping the patient community. So I will be switching roles at the beginning of March.
But still very similar, in terms of your gifts and empowering and strengthening the patients to know what are their rights and what questions should they ask, and being prepared and having basically that tool belt with all of the tools ready to go so that they feel confident in their journey with their patient, whether it's their daughter or son or husband or wife or grandma or whoever, to continue on to the next day. Because that's the most powerful piece that I'm getting from you, is that what you were able to do after you overcame the tragedy and all of the hard work of raising Lydia to age 7 is that now you had this full tool belt of things that you would have asked, that you should have done, that now you can share with other people to make their journey that much easier and hopefully, get some answers or know things ahead of time so they're not kind of, struck out of the blue and go, now what do I do? So, you're just really a powerful tribe maker is what I call you. I call you because you're bringing people together with values and thought processes, but also helping them. And there's nothing better you can do in the world than to help someone else.
I don't want anyone else to end up in these shoes. And a lot of people see me as, oh my gosh, she's a force of nature. She's so strong. Look at her. She's so resilient. The reality is that you never get over losing your child.
No.
That hole is there forever. It may not be as gaping. It may not be as beating as hard and as much, but it is there forever. And I don't have to cry publicly, but every day I see her picture, I feel her, she's on my mind, and every day that's that pain. Mm-hmm. And yes, I am sometimes a force, but I don't want anyone else to feel this pain. Mm-hmm. But she also gave me so much strength. She taught me how to persevere and persistence and resilience. I mean, resilience is so key, and it's something I want to teach my boys, that you could be handed the worst
problem, anything.
Challenge,
right.
It's how you respond to it. It's how you get up the next day. That's so important. I want my boys to see that, wow, I want my boys to know that I love them just as much as I love her. Mm-hmm. They are just as important, and I don't want them to ever, ever, ever doubt that. Although a lot of my life so far has been geared towards her and our life with her. But I also want to teach them that, I could have folded. I could have crawled into bed and stayed there and said, my girl's gone, and I worked so hard to keep her here, and she's gone. But I also want them to see that it's worth getting up the next day for. Mm-hmm. They're worth getting up the next day for. And helping others is worth getting up the next day for. And I've met so many families that have lost, and they would say to me, you get it. You get this.
Right.
You understand it. And I also partnered with the Cameron Boyce Foundation, for a little bit, where we work together to bring awareness and education and a voice to it too. So, so many things to help others.
Right. And when people connect in that same manner, like you did with the Boyce parents, that even though you don't live in the same state, even though you had a little girl, they had a grown boy. I mean, the factual pieces are so different, but you had that one link in common, and that link creates trust, and trust is what creates tribes, and tribes are what change the world. That is what I believe, and that is one of the podcasts I did a few weeks ago was about that. And it's just so funny because you're literally saying what I was saying, but in a totally different light, and it's so incredible how you meet all these families, and then they become part of your lifelong mission and your lifelong tribe.
And you talk about tribes in that way of helping each other. I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for my tribe.
Right.
I wouldn't be sitting and as strong as I am without members of my tribe, whether they stayed in the tribe or were there for a short time. I really accredit everybody in my life that has helped me to this point and remembered my daughter. That is one thing that I talk about in grief. People are so uncomfortable with grief and they can't sit in it with someone because it's uncomfortable for them. But I have had people sit in it with me as I've cried, as I've sobbed, as I've said, I want to move out of state, or I want to do this, or, I miss her. They've sat in that grief, which is so hard to sit while someone cries. And
there's nothing that you can do. Yeah, to make them feel better other than be there.
And there's people in my tribe that just continue to remember her, continue to be there for me, continue to support our journey, which is amazing because I've always said, I want you to say her name. I want you to talk about her. She's still my child.
Right.
She may be gone, but she's still my child. I love her.
Right.
And I want her to be remembered.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it is a hard thing for humans to do. And I've always tried to teach my kids that it's okay and you want to ask about, so-and-so's mom that died. And
exactly.
How are you feeling? Do you want to talk about your mom? Don't act like their mom never existed and just tiptoe around it, because that is what most humans, want to do, because that's easier for them. Yeah.
Well, I'm afraid you might cry, or I'm afraid
I don't want to upset you.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm always thinking, well, yeah, I lost my child. I'm upset, but I'm feeling better that you remember to ask about me. And I always say that no matter the length of time, this year my daughter will be gone 7 years. The number of years she actually lived on this earth, she will be gone.
Right.
And each year is hard. Each year is hard. But no matter the time frame, make sure you ask how they're doing.
Right.
Make sure you see how they are, remember them, remember their loved one, because time for this type of loss.
Right. It never goes away.
No.
No matter how many years go by.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, so through this whole experience, and the job and the new job, congratulations, very excited for you. Is there any sort of mantra you live by, anything that you have on your screensaver, your phone, or anything like that you could share with other women listening and men that really kind of sticks with you in your hardest days, that you remind yourself, anything like that you kind of live by?
Well, I have two. The least important is one I'll say first, and it's up in my office, and it's well-behaved women rarely make history.
This is true. I love that one.
I love that one. I have a T-shirt with it. I have a sign in my office.
I need a sign in my podcast studio because everybody who knows me knows me. I'm very sassy and usually inappropriate, but
Yeah, I can be that way too. So. But the one that I most live by, watching my mom be a single mom and being a girl myself, I just watched her strength and perseverance and resilience. She was amazing. I know she looks and says, okay, I know I didn't do things exactly right, but I always say I attribute to my strength to being brought up by a woman like that who was so strong and went through that divorce and just did it like a boss. And she was a stay-at-home mom, went out and got her career and had to make a lot of sacrifices that I as a girl saw. Probably my brothers felt more than I felt, but she always said to me, you can be sad today, you can cry, but tomorrow you pick yourself back up and make things happen. It was always something that I've kept and I've repeated and I've said, yeah, you can be sad today, but tomorrow you make things happen. And that's something I've lived by from her. And I've watched her do it over and over and over again. So I was very thankful to be brought up by a very strong, smart, resilient woman.
Wow. Coming from someone who just, recently became. See, I am not supposed to cry on my own podcast. You are supposed to cry, not make me cry. I should have written that in the rules.
I'm sorry.
But that's why I asked that question, because that is so powerful for me, because there are so many days that, and it's just because I was used to being in a partnership for 19 years and it hasn't even been a year yet. So that's a good mantra. I'm going to put that somewhere in my office too, because there are days that you are sad and you need to be sad. And if you have a tribe that can help you, and I do, you
And you
have
need
the
to
day.
allow yourself to be sad.
Sure.
I mean, that was one thing my mother never let me do was sit in it, but she did allow me to say, you know what? And I say it to my boys, especially my youngest one, with COVID being so hard on these kids.
Oh, amen. Yes.
My little one
so
has
hard.
come home and he's just been in tears, and I've hugged him and I've said, it's okay to be sad today, but tomorrow's a new day.
Right.
Tomorrow's a new day, and tomorrow we figure this
it
out
out.
and we do something different to make it a better day.
I love that mantra. I'm going to start using that with my own kids. We also have to remember to stock the podcast studio with tissue, Steve. So just put that on the to-do list. So, all right. Well, before we let you go, because it's been like a roller coaster of emotions, and I love that because that means we got into it and we talked about hard stuff and we talked about happy stuff and we laughed a little because I am a spaz and I always laugh. But I asked this question to everyone, and I know you were thinking about it a little bit, but if you were Oprah and you could give one thing to everyone in the world, like you get a car, you get a car, you get a car, do you have a one thing that you would share with every person that you know? Expensive, cheap, it doesn't matter. Is there anything that is like your favorite thing or something you do or use every day?
I really have thought about this question.
It's a hard question.
And it's a hard question because I think I've learned in life that, I love my nice things. I totally do. I'm not going to sit here and deny that. I love my nice things. But I've also learned that, from losing a child, that you can have all the nice things, but they don't matter.
Right.
It depends on who's in your life. I feel like my whole premise of my being since she died was to build a tribe, to help others feel empowered through whatever that is. And in the last year, I started selling a makeup line.
Oh, good. That's exciting.
It is exciting, and I love it. And I started this group of women where I just go on and just try to empower and strengthen them and let them know that they feel beautiful. If there was any gift I could give somebody, is to know that you feel beautiful, you matter, you are a wonderful being, you are someone important.
Right.
And you're beautiful whether you have makeup on or not, or if you have that newest, greatest thing. I wish I could give everybody just that little bit of confidence and that strength and the perseverance and resilience if I could give a gift.
That is an incredible answer. And obviously you do that in your group of ladies with the makeup, but you also do that just with every person that you meet. I can tell because you've done it for me. So I just want to thank you so much for coming and being here and being the very first real live guest. It's like a radio studio, isn't it? It's like it's pretty cool. I don't have all the things on the wall yet, but Sally Schaeffer, it has been such a gift to spend this time with you and get to know you. And we will be thinking of you on Mother's Day and wishing you all the love and hugs and flowers and 75-degree days that we can. And good work. Keep up with all the good work because it's needed.
Thank you for having me. And thanks for doing this podcast and really trying to empower people and strengthen people and bring people together. This is amazing.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Yeah, it's my gift too. It is my gift to be able to hear other stories, but just to know that there are other people out there just trucking along and getting through hard stuff. And we have to stick together. So
absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Fearlessly Authentique. My mom hopes this episode empowered you to be fearless. Please remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Share, rate, and comment because my mom wants to hear all of your feedback. Contact her directly at fearless@fearlesslyauthentique.com. Hosted and executive produced by my mom, Kimberly Warner, produced and mixed by Steve Hawkins, and co-hosted by Eddie Polanzani. Connect with us on social media via fearlesslyauthentique.com. Copyright Fearlessly Authentique 2020.